are you?
I'm stellar. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes. Okay. So I would love for you to tell, those who are tuning in a little bit more about you, what you do, and you know, what's happening in your world right now.
Yeah, Pod Squad. My name's Erin. I am the designer behind RubyWorks Co. And I have been doing web design off and on since 2015. I kind of wrangled myself into a marketing manager position for a startup after taking on some projects and kind of finding my place. But I, more than anything, really love storytelling and really love the strategy that leads itself to really great aesthetics. So my approach to web design is a little bit different than some, but I live in LA. I am a current weightlifter and former college athlete. I'm an inside girl through and through. I host a monthly dinner party with just like friends. So I'm just happy to be here and like really on this journey figuring everything out as well.
Wow, that is incredible. Honestly, learning so much more about you, like just through your introduction.
Chronic
And
overshare, so
no,
strap
this
in.
is amazing. And even like hearing the way that, and I'm sure feels so second nature to you, but hearing the ways that you explain like what you love to do and more aspects about yourself and things like that, is of an is like essence your personal brand. And like I feel like that is so like second nature to you already. And I'd like to say that I love my personal brand, but if someone were to ask me like tell me about yourself, I'm like three fun facts. I live in Canada. I'm 22 years old, So I love the way that you just, shared those amazing facts about you. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about like building an email newsletter while leaning into your personal brand with you. And I feel like 2024, the vibes are branching out to omni platforms. It's really like making sure that our business leans into longevity and sustainability. We've been seeing time after time again, like my Instagram got deactivated, or like, um, you know, I've been hacked, or so many different scenarios where every single time we've received one of those emails from the most loved female founders that we immerse ourselves in with, and it just your heart just drops to your stomach. And so I know for a fact that the goal for 2024 is to really leverage being on omni platforms, whether that's TikTok, Pinterest, but email is coming. Like emails are so cool again. And I want to talk more about basically, how to leverage a personal brand within your email newsletter. So I'd love for you to share to those who are tuning in a little bit about your experience, like starting your email newsletter, and what your story is with that.
Yeah, no, great point. And I just to echo what you were saying, I feel like everything in life and like trends goes from like kind of ebbs and flows. So we went from people um thinking that they needed 17 things in order to launch a business to like, no, all you need is a really successful one platform and a funnel. And now we're like easing back. So I definitely come from a stance of like all in moderation.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get any farther, and if anybody's watching video and they saw me eye roll when you called me a personal brand, thank you so much. That's really sweet of you. I can't go into one of these conversations without like wanting to scream. I didn't want to be a personal brand. So like plot
Okay.
twist. No, I
Wow.
just wanted to be a designer that never showed their face. This is
Okay.
really cool, and I'm so happy to be here. But if you would have asked me a year or two, or really 2 years ago when I was thinking about doing kind of business strategy and web design full time, I would have never told you that I'm on camera a lot. I hate
Really?
it.
And
Um,
what kind of made you, like, obviously it happened probably very intuitively, right, for you?
yeah, so there's a lot. My third episode of Weird Magic, which is my newsletter, is about the rejection episode, and or it's called the rejection episode, and it's about me reconnecting to my intuition through
Mm.
a past job, something my therapist said, the boss that I like knew I needed. in a job interview. I went to a practice job interview and I met one of the executives that I would be supporting as an executive assistant. And I just walked out of that meeting and I was like, I have to work for her. Like I have to. Like it was just like something in me. And she's very strong. She's very driven. She's a Gemini. I call her Gemini Batman.
Yeah.
But she really helped me reconnect to the intuition. So all of these things are happening in ways that make sense. I'm learning to lean into my intuition. I have always been a good writer, more like on the
Mhm.
creative writing side. And then speaking to like my stance on business in terms of like basic, not boring, but and also
Yeah.
like strategy before aesthetics. I really think that the two things that a business really, really needs to be successful is their content on a domain that they own, so a website,
Hmm.
and an email list. Because those are the two things that you like are least likely to lose. So as I was getting ready to lean into this because I realized one of the trends that I'm loving in business, especially in the online space, is that people want to buy from people
Yes.
and how much we're seeking connection. And um as an ambivert, as a person that's both extroverted and introverted, and I come off way more extroverted than I am,
Yeah.
um, I really need connection as a person that works from home in their office. I
Yes.
live with one of my best friends here in LA. She's the reason we have this amazing apartment. And I remember her telling me one time when I was one of my, like in my first couple months of working from home remote, she was like, I need you to use your words with other people. Like, I can't be the only place. So I like have this gym membership that I'm really into where I take
Mhm.
classes. Like, so there's that. But I love the way that with the ebbs and flows, like, I know it can feel really um scary to people to have what you're being told or even like just noisy to hear a bunch of things about what you should be doing in business, but I
Yeah.
love the way it's coming back to repurposing content in multiple channels and making email cool again. And
Hmm.
I can't wait to talk about that, but yeah, my movement into an email list was like I got to the point where I was like, okay, I know I need to build an email list, but I'm not going to write marketing emails every week. Like I hate that. And for a
Yeah.
few different reasons, I think you have to be sending an email regularly. And I think less than once a week is just kind of lost in the noise and it doesn't develop the continuity. And I also I make a joke that I move states after every breakup. Like I've just lived in three different states now. Like I don't have the best I'm not the best at staying like in contact with people as much as I could. So now
Okay.
my newsletter is actually written. Weird magic. My newsletter is a storytelling newsletter that's barely salesy, but there's like reflections on life and business weaved in.
Yeah.
But it's mostly stories and musings and things that are embarrassing or vulnerable. But it's written so that my aunt who lives in like northern Idaho can read it, so that my old coworkers at the university that I used to work at, there's like a whole department that's subscribed. Like I love them so
Wow, that
much.
is
My
incredible.
therapist responds sometimes. Like I
Yeah.
have past teammates. Like it's really, really incredible. I wanted something that felt like me
Hmm.
and that was really just attracting more. And when it's scary, like when I've cried writing episodes when I'm like scared to put this out there,
Yeah.
um, I get so much positive reassurance that I really had no choice but to really move into a personal brand.
Hmm. I feel like with a personal brand, it's almost like essential for our sanity as entrepreneurs because, I could definitely relate with you on like I didn't want to show up. When I first started my business almost 4 years ago, I was really leaning into just carousel posts, like just, pretty carousel posts and I
Mhm.
was really struggling with even having an identity outside of being a business owner. I was
Yeah.
struggling with not speaking for days, like two people, like-minded women entrepreneurs, or just like really cool people. And it can be so isolating and almost
Mhm.
like to have a personal brand is to save our sanity in the online space because we get to connect with so many people. And although that felt scary at first to connect with people all over the world,
Mhm.
it's you'll find naturally it becomes like the most incredible thing. Like, talking, like being able to have a conversation with you. You're in LA, I'm in Halifax, Nova Scotia, in Canada. Like
Hmm.
to be on our call and to have such a vibey conversation just came down to personal brand, like for our energy to connect and to start a conversation, to be here today, and those who are tuning in like totally vibing with us right now. So yeah, that is incredible. Now going back to an email newsletter, I personally am not, and I'm sure those who are tuning in can definitely relate to this, don't are not very strong in communication on text, right? And
Hmm.
so, you're sitting down, you're writing, and it's like automatic essays, like essay style, right? Like APA format, like
Yeah, yeah,
really
yeah.
like beginning, middle, ends. And of course, that's something that, I had to really work on to get out of. But I know those who are tuning in who want to lean into newsletter, they're struggling with like, what is too vulnerable? Like, what am I oversharing? What am I not sharing enough of? Or how can I even leverage my personal voice? And is that something that like you struggled with in terms of like, am I sharing too much or not enough?
Yeah, in specific ways, and I'll give you some
Yeah.
examples. So, I've sent 40 episodes of Weird Magic, my newsletter. So
Okay.
I've been doing it, and I have never missed a week. At the end, I'll give you a few tips if you're trying to,
Yes.
like keep your streak, but you just don't have time. I'll give you a few tips to do that. We'll put a pin in that. But at the beginning, with everything, so I have a post-it that I just moved, so it wasn't in the background. But like one of my themes for this year is don't be afraid to be seen trying.
Love it.
And I think what it was for me is like learning that one, when you're building an email list, your first like five emails are going to get the least amount of eyes on them out of any of them. So you get
Mhm.
this kind of runway. Two, you only get better at everybody's a novice at some point. Like
Yeah.
you can't become an expert or you can't become really proficient without being a novice. So I remember there was an email, it was probably within the first five that had three typos, and I
Okay.
was livid. Like I used to wake up, I send them on Wednesdays, Weird Magic Wednesday.
Mhm.
And I remember I would wake up and I would like immediately open my phone and read it. And then if there was a typo, I would be so frustrated. And then
Mm.
I started to realize that one, the people are on that list because they like me, because I don't have like these crazy funnels that
Yeah.
are sucking people in. I have a few lead captures, and we can talk about those too. Like I can get as
Yes.
strategic or woo-woo as you
Love
want.
it.
But I have everybody on that list is like 1 or 2 degrees of separation, if not
Mhm.
knows me personally. So um it is one of those things where you just learn that you have to practice, and that's the way you're going to get comfortable.
Mhm.
But for me specifically, I posted like a website or not a website, a day in the life, like vlogged style reel yesterday. And
Okay.
chronic overshare. I grabbed coffee yesterday with an ex-partner of mine. Like,
Okay.
but I didn't, but I put that I went to coffee. I just said like with a person who doesn't do free publicity.
Okay.
Like, like I can make jokes so you can bring
Yeah.
humor in, and that's where you can filter stuff. Also, like if let's say I took a phone call, like you don't have to document. You can have a really authentic day in the life that is 80% of your day. I think where we get intimidated and where we get turned around is the idea that you have to be putting every single detail of your
Mm.
life on the internet for your audience. And well, I'm happy to tell you that he's a great guy and I love talking to him about life and business and travel and all of those things. Like,
Yeah.
it also didn't need to be front and center on my Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
feel
I run that line all the time, and it's just up to you. And I guess the only other thing I'll say on that is like if you accidentally overshare to your email list or you have like a little bit too much vulnerability, it's only one line in their inbox.
yeah. Yeah. I love that. And we have emails like 14,000, like high up there. And sometimes I'm going through like that cleansing,
Mhm.
unsubscribing, and of course like they're not gonna unsubscribe from us because our personal brands are so strong. But oh, Hollister or like, Bath and Body
Yeah.
Works, what's your email at checkout? And so you're signed up to all of these things and I'm like, they have sent me so many emails and I did not even know until clicking on this, or
Mhm.
like they sent me an email a day and for some reason I don't have this vendetta against them at all,
Mhm.
so I feel like kind of putting yourself in the shoes is like validate how like that you're just showing up, you're just being your unapologetic self. And I feel like when you said basically talking about like what, of course I asked you basically oversharing or not sharing enough or vulnerabilities, I feel like there's a spectrum to this because there's one way most people lean towards is like, okay, am I sharing too much? Or is this even worth sharing at all? Right. And having a difficult time figuring out what to share or what stories to tell, or thinking that it's if it's even important enough to do so. So, what is your like tip, or like what are your thoughts on if a story is interesting enough to share or not?
I'm getting fast and loose with them because, like I said, I've practiced 40 times.
Yeah.
But I think what is really helpful is one time I just did a brain dump of like stories that I wanted to tell. So the startup that I used to work for, I was an intern and then worked full time for them. And so I was traveling abroad with college students 3 months of the year for like 6 years. So like there's a lot of stories from like that chapter of Erin's life. And then there's also like dating stories that I dabble in, but like I said, there's people on that list that have to worry about me. But I think one thing that I'd really like to make sure that is clear, like if you're honoring people's unsubscribes, like if you're not putting them on the list, then the door is always there for them to leave. And
Yeah.
that's not a failure. So
Yeah.
like if I'm oversharing, I have somebody on my list I asked this week, I was like, oh, we're like, would you guys just tell me? I was like, I'm doing some appearances in the coming weeks. Like, could you guys, if you have a moment, please respond. So I ask things. It's a call and response thing. So I was like, could you guys please respond? Why out of all the emails in your inbox, this is when you open every week? Because my open rate is 70%, which is kind of bonkers. It's
Incredible.
like double the industry standard. So
Yes.
I'm really proud of that. I'm really happy about it. I'm stoked to be here and help other people get results similar.
Mhm.
But I had somebody respond and they're like, I'm the unicorn on your list. Most of the stuff you say could be in another language. I just really like that you're here sharing, and I know a good writer when I see one. So like there's people that don't, I know, so sweet.
Oh.
But there's people that don't even really vibe with like the marketing or the branding concepts, but they're just here
Mhm.
to be entertained. And when they're done, they can close it.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I love that.
Um, in terms of how I decide what to write, so I'm not as organized as some other people that I know that have like really stand out. I'm not as like regimented, I would say,
Okay.
as other people that have email newsletters that are storytelling based. I have a kind of similar format that I always follow. There's some tips and tricks for how to write, like engaging openings to emails. And one of the ones that I use a lot is like start in the story. Like don't set it
Mm.
up, just like be vivid and start in the story.
Okay.
And so I'll tell a story and I'll either like do an asterisk or like, I'm sure there's a lesson here, but hold on. Or like I'll tell a story and then reflect on it. And so when it comes to deciding what to write, I did a brain dump and like made a list of like funny stories. And then I would have a column next to it that was like, is there a lesson in here about branding? Last week, somebody at the gym thought I was flirting with them and I was just being weird. And I had to be like, if I was flirty at the gym, this is how I would show up. Like my brand is not flirty. My brand is friendly and quirky. And here's why. And so
Wow.
there's like that sort of progression. And I think once you learn to find either humor, reflections, lessons, or parallels, you can kind of write about anything.
Yeah.
It's
Wow.
just a matter of practice, which I know is not like a sexy answer.
Hmm.
But if you learn to either pull a lesson, a reflection, or an emotion and then tie it to something that relates to you, your life, your business, brilliant.
Love it. Wow. And oftentimes, like when it comes to storytelling and like story time or like sharing an experience, a lot of business owners, have a difficult time transitioning that and obviously, transitioning that into business conversations and stuff. So when you're sharing your newsletters, are you like always referencing to business, or sometimes it's just a story, or do you ever reference to business, or what does that look like?
I'm learning. So
Yeah.
one of the things that's not being afraid to be seen trying is I am pushing myself to sell socially more.
Hmm.
So email is definitely one of those. So an example would be, um, hmm, oftentimes I will plug it to a service. So like a really easy one would be like, let's say there's a story where I really love to go to like I live in LA, so there's a t bunch of different neighborhoods that have a bunch of different grocery stores. So I love going to the Korean grocery stores, and I get
Yes.
overwhelmed at some point because I don't know what I'm doing. So
Yeah.
I could tell the story of like waking up on Saturday, getting so excited, trying to get there early so the bakery still has like fresh baked goods and like not knowing what I'm doing, and then getting home and realizing that I bought a garlic donut and like
Yes.
oat. And I could stop the story there, and then I could pull it into like this is the surprises that happen when you're a novice. Like had I been with somebody that like is more practiced at, or like speaks like anything, I could have been like, this is a beginner mistake. This is what happens. Like it wasn't the most efficient thing, but whatever. Or I could say, I could take it a different way and a different direction, or I could say, and there was actually a banging garlic donut. Like I didn't expect
Yeah.
to like sweet and savory. So, and then I could have plugged like sometimes when you I want to say when you fuck around and find out. I don't know if I can.
Yeah.
When you do things on your own and you stumble or you find a different path, it still ends up really beautiful. And that's when I could plug like the DIY copy template that I'm making. So like if you want
Yeah.
to do it yourself, so you can weave stories in. It's just about finding a way to bring it back to services
Hmm.
in a way that feels authentic and fun.
Yeah.
And then at the footer of my email, I'm always talking about, so at the footer of my email, I'm always talking about what I'm working on, what I'm listening to, and what I'm singing along to. So that's a really
Ooh.
low way that
Okay.
I'll talk about what I'm working on, where people can read and find it. And then I've done this and I've seen bunch of other people's doing this as well, where they like will interrupt their newsletter to do a little bulletin for like maybe a special or a launch that's happening or anything like that, where it can be abrupt. Like
Yeah.
these people are reading your email because they like you.
Hmm. You're such a creative genius. Like, I love the way that you've put that. And I guess, like, to take away from it is really just connecting the underlying takeaway from the story and an underlying takeaway from a business experience or your intentions for either working with you, investing in your business, whatever your goal is for, selling your services at the end. So I just thought you're so genius for like being able to tie in your creativity, your storytelling, and in an effective way as well, and to be so vibey, right? To like sell without selling, and that's incredible. And to also add to your point is that it doesn't mean you always have to sell something, but more so like being able to be your most authentic self and unapologetic self automatically highlights or sets the tone of what working with you would look like. Being comfortable enough to be working with you, sharing, whatever you specialize in, and like for them to be able to lean into that. For those who are tuning in, for them to lean into basically what working with you would look like if they had questions or vulnerabilities about what you specialize in, like to run to you, not away from you. And on top of that, especially since you specialize in, like branding and web and all that fun
Yeah.
stuff, you're almost like setting this example of like this is what it could look like for you. Like your branding could literally like be like encompassed in this way. Not so much like this exact brand colors or anything, but more like you can leverage your personal brand. You can sell by just showing up and being your unapologetic self. So oftentimes when I get client inquiries and I'm like, oh, did you really resonate with like my client case studies, my testimonials? They're like, no, I just love the way that you articulate things. I just love the way you show
Yeah.
up and can you tell me more about, personal branding, growing a community? I love your community. And I'm like, sometimes it's just setting the example as yourself as a business owner, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Especially, I love that point, and it circles back to what we were talking about earlier about connection, because with the email newsletter, I didn't want to write salesy emails. Like there are
Mm,
plenty of weeks where I don't mention my services except for the footer.
yeah.
Or I'm like, I had this great idea, whatever. So it's for me, it's more about showing up, and it works out that like I mostly work with people in the beauty or fitness industries and personal brands. And so the fact that I'm out here yapping along, being all these things really helps people understand that like I can help you make sense of all your skills and talents too. Like
Mm,
I'm going to be working on a website a client just signed that I've been pestering for a while. It's a friend in real life.
yeah.
Um, that's like an actor, director, and creative producer. So I was like, okay, well, this is my idea for like how to organize all of those things. Or like another friend that is a model and fitness person, because LA, I
Yeah.
want your home screen to have a way that you can toggle between those two bios. Like,
Yes.
because I show up all of the things. I think it does invite people to show up and feel like they can take up space. But another reason that I don't sell in all of my emails is because I just wanted to be top of mind to people. Like I'm
Mm.
in mindset that like a lot of people need websites, whether they want to keep their 9 to 5s, but they're a creative or they're trying to boost their career and they just need like a pretty simple 1 or 2 page portfolio, or they are trying to launch a business all the way into like, I love my hair salon clients, all the way to hair salons that want to recruit better talent and retain their staff and get new clients. Like, there's
Hmm.
ways that we can do that too. Like, working in the multitudes is like my favorite thing. So, showing
Yes.
big allows me to attract more too.
I love that. And, just from personal experience and being an entrepreneur for almost 4 years now, reflecting to like early stages to now, I think the biggest difference is being able to, even if your client is like your lowest ticket, almost being just as excited for generating them as a client as your highest ticket. When you hold the same level of energy and excitement, like you're gonna be content as a business owner. And I think like being able to have a creative playground in your business to be really like excited about what you're producing, what you're creating, and whether that is like an email newsletter, whether that's a membership or whatever that looks like for you, but leaning into that creative playground where you get to be really lean into your personal brand, really talk about things that you want to talk about and like express your creativity, your excitement, your passions in other ways beyond just your business. And I know I don't want to say just your business, but you're more than just a business owner, right? There's so
Yeah.
much more to you, so many lived experiences that you've been through, so many people you've connected with and have left a ripple effect on their life. And that's not to tread lightly, I don't think. So, yeah.
I don't know if you feel this way. I work with a lot of people that have done websites before, usually themselves, but I get a lot of people where I am the most they have invested
Mhm.
so far in their journey. And like, of course, I want to retain them and they're going to keep investing in me and we're going to be great together forever. But I get a lot of people that were sold on either me, like referrals,
Mhm.
get to know me through what I put out, and me showing a lot of like behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of people that I think this idea that you are too much for people is interesting because I think the more playful, the more room there is to grow. Like
Yeah.
if we're here for a reason, like let's be playful. Like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So I get a lot of people that this is the most that they've invested, and I obviously offer payment plans and all of those things, but I get a lot of people that are really excited to work with me, just like I'm sure because you're even a more of an interpersonal like service provider in the way that you like really mentor and coach people. People are coming to work with you, and I think when I just wanted to be a web designer that made things look nice and then went away, that I
Yeah.
was coming from a place that didn't resonate with how small businesses really work.
Yeah. It's really incredible. And sometimes it feels so surreal, I would say, like when people, message me or when people are like, you're my dream mentor. As soon as I can invest, like I'm going to, and they do. It's like, wow, like what an honor. Or, those who are messaging like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. Like, are you okay? And it's like, you're consuming so much content, but you actually care, you notice, right? And so it's really interesting. This is something that I had to adapt after like really elevating my personal brand and like putting myself out there. I realized that it's important as a business owner to have a personal brand because you're really doing justice for your future ideal clients or your clients that you're going to be working with, for them to really know what they're getting themselves into and who they're going to be working with. They're investing a lot of money if depending on your services, right? But they're most likely investing in their business. They're investing a lot of money into their business, and that takes trust. That takes, being able to be honest and vulnerable with you, depending on, again, like different industries. But most of the time, it takes trust to outsource, to add team members, to invest in a mentor. And so yeah, I totally agree with you. It's incredible, and it's all to do with being able to like put yourself out there and positioning yourself. And I notice what was really important for me is to show up on video, to be able to articulate different hot takes, different things I'm passionate about, to really like propel unaligned clients and attract really aligned, dreamy clients. And so that was really important to me because, you just want to be as excited as the clients that you're working with, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think my favorite analogy for kind of conveying the importance or the resonance with becoming a more of a personal brand is everybody has like in like a lot of friend groups, there's like this is the person that does their hair or their nails.
Yes.
This is or like travel agents, depending on like the age group of the friend group. But there's people that you go to because they do a good job and you trust them. So what you were saying earlier about treating every client, no matter their package price, as like the best version of yourself and like really showing up for them. One, awesome because I'm a person that like believes in like the law of reciprocity and the law of attraction and like that what you
Yeah.
give out you put in. So if you're at a point in your business where you're like not super stoked on the amount of clients you have, treat your current clients like they are superstars. Like don't do
Yeah.
more than they're paying for necessarily, but give them the best possible experience because that like radiates everywhere. Just like I have an entire friend group that goes to see the same hair person. And
Yeah.
like we should all just book it at the same time. We could do like a brunch. Like
Love it.
my therapist, started like a therapy cult where like all of my friends in Seattle go to my old therapist because like
Wow.
and it's a high trust. So like I don't think in my first like intake session with her that she was like, "Oh, this girl is going to refer me 5 clients that I see for multiple years." But you
Yeah.
have no idea who's going to show up for you like that. So you should try to be treating everybody the best you can, regardless of their pay scale, because people like people and
Hmm.
people want to pay people. We don't like paying their brands and corporations like we do paying other small businesses.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. Now, going back to, email newsletters, because I'd love to hear, and I'm sure those who are tuning in would love to hear basically your tips or, how to leverage your personal brand in your newsletter. I know we touched about that, but do you have any tips for those who are tuning in to take away for starting a newsletter or being able to like be consistent with it or to funnel people in and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, so it's really simple to kind of like, not simple, it's really similar to like launching services. And I know you've talked about that and you've talked about social strategy for that. What I did is I actually took a course from Sarah at Between the Lines Copy, the email marketing chapter, that was impeccable because I was trying to figure out how to make it something that I didn't hate, but knowing I needed it. So I was still in that phase.
Mm.
So I announced that I was starting a newsletter. I created a wait list and I would like tease and talk about it on stories mostly. And then I had a launch date. So when I had a launch date, I also had a lead capture at that point that would feed people into the newsletter.
Hmm.
So I I had a freebie that then came with a welcome sequence, and I use Flowdesk for that. It's my favorite.
I love
And
photos.
then in the welcome sequence, the first email is, "Hey, here's your freebie. I'm going to be back in your email tomorrow. Enjoy." The second one is,
Yes.
"Hey, let me introduce myself. Here are some quirky things about me." The third one is, "This is what I do for clients. We don't have to do those things, but here's how you're going to hear from me moving forward." So plugging that they're going to be added to our Weird Magic.
Hmm.
And then they get added to the Weird Magic segment on the back end. And then they just get thrown in. So now they're just getting weekly emails. So if you were to sign up for one of my freebies now, you would get that welcome sequence and then you would be getting episode 41. So
Okay.
there's that. And I segment it so that if you download my freebie on a Tuesday and the email comes out Wednesday morning, you're not getting it until you're done with the welcome sequence. So I'm
Okay.
respectful of their inbox.
Yeah.
Um, and then when it came to launching, I had the freebie, I had the welcome sequence, and I just started sending once a week. I block time pretty consistently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, where if it's not like me doing like a lazy first draft where I'm just like brain dumping and it doesn't have to make sense, or a
Yeah.
dictation where I'm literally using dictation on Google Docs and speaking into it, then I'll go back and edit it on Monday. And then I'll give it a quick look. If it feels good on Monday, then I'll throw it into Flowdesk and schedule it for Wednesday morning. If not, if it doesn't feel quite right on Monday or I'm rushing, then I'll put another 20 minutes on my calendar Tuesday to give it another read through, to put it into Flowdesk. I write in Google Docs and then put it
Mm-hmm.
into Flowdesk because it makes me look at it again. So
Okay.
I don't write, people just write in their email marketing platform, and that's totally fine. I
Yeah.
need a little bit more editing.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so then and then it goes time to send. And then if I back going back to what you're talking about vulnerability, if I'm feeling vulnerable about a draft that's coming out, I'll post that to my story. Like I'll either do a screen capture or a time lapse of me writing,
Mhm.
or do a preview of the subject line that it's scheduled to send, and just like talk about how it's nervous, because all it does is it gives people an opportunity to support you.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, do you ever share what your contents are in your newsletter on your Instagram stories? But I think, like, yeah, that is a great way to share it. Again, like being able to connect and almost have like validation or like being able to start conversations with others in your community is great. So, I think you answered my question for that.
There's another thing that will relate to, I also post a lot of screenshot responses. So I said that there's a lot of call and response earlier
Yeah.
in the, so if you just sign up for Weird Magic, you also get a welcome to Weird Magic email. That's like,
Okay.
here's some housekeeping, here's some things about me. It's call and response. I mean it. Like, please reply. I promise to always respond. And I do respond to every Weird Magic reply. So,
Wow.
um, I asked, like I said, for some like basically why people like to open this email out of all the emails in their inbox. And I got some really nice responses. So I either post social proof type screenshots of like, this is why I love it, or I'll post like FOMO type screenshots of, I had this really funny episode about eating shrimp tails,
Yeah.
lots about travel, lots about dating. Um, and I posted one about eating the shrimp tails because I was sitting at a dinner where the other person was eating the shrimp tails. So I just thought that's what we did.
Yeah.
Uh, and so many people responded that they were like, "Oh my God, this is insane." And so I'd like post those things. It's like the
Yeah.
cool, it's not insane, but I would post those things, and people are like, "Oh, what's this?" So I will also in my welcome email, I say, if you have questions or I'm referencing an episode you didn't get, respond and I'll forward it to you. And that's so easy to do in Flowdesk. So like, it's just a way to have contact with me,
Yeah.
uh, and it's really fun.
I love that. And do they just like respond as if like it's an email, like as a thread in their email? Or yeah, okay. I didn't know if it was that or if they had to like put in a question box in another link or something like that.
No, with Flowdesk on the back end, it goes to everybody. So some people do like a BCC to a
Mhm.
list, and which is like if you're not at a point where you want to invest in an email marketing platform, totally valid. I get that. But you can just reply to the email,
Mhm.
um, and it's always me. And I
Wow, love it.
have emails for RubyWorks. I have like the general contact one,
Mm.
but Weird Magic comes from me because it's me.
Yes, okay. I love that. I've learned so much about like again, like I have an email list and a lot of people on there, but I obviously lean a lot more into like business and such and struggle with, personal branding and such. So I've learned so much from our conversation today about leveraging your personal brand and like story time and things like that. It is so exciting. And for those who are tuning in and want to kind of get started with this, I highly recommend Flowdesk as well. Like it's just incredible in terms of formatting, layout. It's really user friendly, and it's really cool to be able to utilize your brand colors, your logos, and like your brand images and such. So highly recommend Flowdesk. I don't. Yeah. So that being said, I love our conversation today. Are there any, other things that you want to share about a newsletter, starting a newsletter, growing a newsletter? Yeah.
Yeah, so three of my like, you have to do these things is one, you have to name it. You have to call it something. Otherwise,
Oh,
it's
okay.
just an email that gets floaty from whoever. But
Mm,
like, you create a culture around it. And then since it has a name, it also needs to have either an aesthetic or a structure or a template that you write it in. It should be consistent. You
okay.
want to be predictable in their inbox. They need to know what's coming, when, and what it consists of. So Weird Magic is coming on Wednesday morning, and it's stories and like a side of selling. So
Okay.
that's, you have to name it and you have to have like a similar template. And then the thing that I was going to say that I wanted to make sure we circle back to, and we're doing
Yeah.
great, is some tips if you're going to miss a week and you couldn't plan ahead. One, you can do a replay where you send you revisit a different episode. We see that with podcasts. We see that
Yeah.
with other things where it's a rerun. So you can send another email, call it a favorite. So you would just copy it, and uh, add a little tidbit at the top, like, hey, today's a replay of this episode where this happens. I'm currently, and you address why you're sending it. Like
Ah,
family vacation, or I got hit with, the flu,
yeah.
whatever it is. So that you can do a replay. You can buy people coffee. I'm not buying Starbucks right now for like reasons, but
Yeah.
you can either do a Starbucks gift card, you could do a Target gift card, and you can put it in there and just make sure the funds don't auto renew.
Okay.
Do like, $30, $50, however you're feeling, and then screenshot it and put it as an image in the email. And then another thing you can do is you can bring people into guest write. So I had my best friend from high school who's a phenomenal writer. The week that I launched this current, already feels outdated version of my website, I
Yeah.
was swamped. So she guest wrote for me. And it was like, hi,
Wow.
and so you can do different things like that to save time. Obviously, the first two don't require time from anybody else, but guest writing is also a really cute way to do it.
I feel like this is a great way. Again, like if you ever decided to, do blogging or something like that, I think this is a great way to be able to repurpose it because you have access to all of your stories or leverage it in like an Instagram content piece or something like that if you ever wanted to. Like again, you're 40 newsletters down the line now. So, a lot of those who are just opting in, they probably haven't seen your first, 5, 10, 15, so on. So I think that would be like such a cool thing as well for you to even have and, come to terms with your own stories and lived experiences and stuff. I just love our conversation today and I love the energy in the room here. Okay, so I'd love for you to share, with those who are tuning in, where they can find you, what's happening in your world right now, how they can work with you, and all that fun stuff.
Thank you. It's been so great. I feel like I'm going to be propositioning you to come back and talk about anything else you want. It's been so fun.
Yes.
Um, if you're looking for me, you can find me at rubyworks.co. That's my Instagram. That's my TikTok, where I'm like even less unfiltered somehow. And then also that's my website domain. So RUBYWRKS.co. And it's really important to me that I offer services that can meet people where they're at every budget. So, if you're a personal brand, if you're somebody in the beauty or wellness industry, after this, I'm going to hop off and do a homepage for a laundromat. So, like, if you want to work with me and I can do it, I want to work with you. So I do web design for my web design clients. I'll also help them with branding or copywriting, but I can do strategy calls and help you set up your newsletter. I can talk to you about the like lead gen and lead magnet and how to do your segmentation. I would really love to work with people at every sort of area. And if you just want to start with a website audit, we can do that as well. Like there's a million ways to work with me, and I try to outline them all on my website. So definitely find me there. Or if you are listening to this now and you go add me on Instagram, DM me before I DM you and say hey, and tell me that you came from Vicky's podcast. I'd really love it.
Yes, amazing. And I will definitely tag everything in the show notes. And even those who want to opt into your newsletter, I'll also add in the link in there for them. And I'm really intrigued to, tune into your newsletters and your story times as well. So I'm so excited. That being said, thank you so much for being on the pod today. And I loved chatting with you.
Thank you so much for sharing the room with me. It's been a real honor.